Good evening and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk. I am Joy Brown, your moderator for the evening. You are in for a treat tonight, so sit back, enjoy, and be sure to post your comments. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe on any and all social media platforms. Now, let's meet tonight's platform guest. She is a native of Maryland, but currently resides in North Carolina. She is an experienced administrator and college educator, a finer woman of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, Delta Rho Zeta Chapter, founder of Her Truth in 2021 regarding her adoption. She has become very passionate about breaking the stigma around adoption. She hopes that by sharing her story, she can help someone else gain the confidence to live in their truth too. Welcome to the platform, Samaria L. Sutton Taft.
Hi, everybody. Let's talk.
Author and entrepreneur, a passionate adoption advocate, and a patron of the arts. After going through her own struggles as an adoptee, she wrote her memoir, Finding Joy, a true story of faith, family, and love, which debuted in 2019. She shared her story so that she could help others who sit in silence about their struggles. She continues to find ways to be open about adoption, not only with adults, but to start the conversation with young people too. She is the author of two best-selling children's adoption books, Choosing Joy, An Adoptee's Journey, and Finding Belonging and Singing with Joy. There are lots of different ways to be a family. These books are part of normalizing conversations around adoption through the Belong Project, an adoption awareness campaign. Stop whispering, let's talk adoption. She serves as the adoptee and survivor team coordinator with Marion's Heart organization in New Jersey. Welcome to the platform, The Other Joy, Joy R. Fisher.
Hey, everybody, let's talk.
And now let's welcome our Let's Talk crew. Give a hearty welcome to Let's Talk co-host Carla L. Morgan, checking in from Atlanta, Georgia.
Hey, everybody, let's talk.
And Andrea Collins White from Delaware.
Are you ready? I'm ready. Let's talk.
Everyone sit back, turn your television and devices up, and prepare for another informative evening as we welcome the Let's Talk host, Regina Smithwick. Regina, take it away.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another great episode of Let's Talk. This episode is going to be amazing. It's about adoption, and this is dear to my heart. So I'm looking forward to it. So let's talk. Welcome back. Welcome back to Let's Talk. Before we get started, I would like to start with a prayer. If you don't mind, just give me a second. Bow your heads if you like. Lord, Heavenly Father, thank you so much for allowing us to join together again to do Let's Talk. As I always say, use us as a vessel and for this information to be helpful for somebody that's going through adoption or been adopted or have adopted adoptee or adopter. And in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right. Amen. So before we get started, I have a couple of things I want to tap on. All right, Soror Taft. Now, I didn't know we were going to be announcing chapters now.
I'm sorry. That was just my intro, you know.
Because I was saying, I'm about to rep. I can rep 2 chapters up here now. But thank you for joining us today. Thank you so much. Like I said, this topic is really, really dear to my heart, and I really wanted to bring two people up here that I admire so much in this adoption. I call it adoption sisters. These are my sisters in adoption, and they have some great stories that we wanted to start telling you. So this is how I want to open this up, because I'm kind of part of the show and I'm the host. So we're going to do it this way. My name is Regina Smithwick. I am adopted. I was adopted 3 days old from Harlem Hospital in New York, New York. Sorry, Shaff, you want to go ahead?
My name is Samara Taft. I was adopted at 11 months in Bethesda, Maryland, and I actually just found out this year, 2 months ago.
All right. Joy with the I.
Hi, I'm Joy Renee. I am an adult adoptee in reunion with my birth parents. I was adopted when I was 2 months old in New Jersey.
Oh, wow. It says this story is amazing because it goes, is like I said, it's no cookie cutter story. They all different. Nobody could take the adoption and throw it in one little bucket. It's impossible because everybody's different. Everybody adopted parents are different. Everybody birth parents are different, and the way they handle the situations are totally different. So let's start this way. I'll start with Joy. Tell us about just a little bit, because we're going to get more in depth, but just tell us a little bit about your adoption, like your birth parents and how the whole thing came about.
Yeah, I was adopted at 2 months old. I was, and I've always known that I was adopted. I've known that I was adopted since about the age of 4. I know that I knew before kindergarten. I can't pinpoint it exactly, but I knew that it always happened around story time. And we would start talking about my being adopted and that my birth mother at the time wasn't able to care for me, and that God placed me in a new family and was allowing and was I was having the opportunity to grow up with my new family, my new parents. So it was something that was always open, to the extent, again, that I knew since I was very young, but just not something that we talked about often. And actually, I didn't really start talking and sharing my adoption journey until 4 years ago, when the legislation changed in our state, that allowed adult adoptees who were born between 1940 and 2015 to gain access to their original birth certificate. In attending a legislative event, I had the opportunity to meet a group called NJ Care, and there was my first conversation in my 40s with people who were adopted, people who were adopted parents, and people who were birth parents. So that was the first time, again, always knowing that I was adopted, but never having really many conversations about it. That was my first experience around adult adoptees who spoke about adoption as if it was just a regular conversation and we're just sitting around a table. From that experience, I realized that I never had that. And they were able to tell their stories. Some were tragic in their endings or in their process of their searches and reunions or things that had gone on. Some were had great happy endings, and some still were questions in the air. But through it all, I realized through them that they were at a healing place to even be able to have the conversation. I sat at the table with them and literally cried with every one of their stories because I just wasn't ready to have those conversations yet. But I knew that in that moment, I had to find out who they were, where they were from, and how I could get into whatever support group they had going on. So that began the journey for me of really touching base with what I knew now were adoption issues, that I wasn't crazy because I felt different when I was growing up. I wasn't quirky or weird. I was adopted, and there were some issues that I had that we just didn't talk about. But being around that group of people let me know that if I hung with them a little bit more, then maybe I could figure this thing out and eventually be able to help somebody else with my story.
Yes, we're going to definitely tap into a couple of things you just talked about. All right, Samara, let's tell us a little bit about your discovery of adoption, you being adopted.
Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, I just found out a few months ago that I was actually adopted. My mother passed away last year, so it's been a year. And my sister, in the process of trying to find some legal paperwork to finish that estate, get the estate turned over into our names, she ran across my adoption paperwork. the original paperwork, and she actually gave me a call and just, wanted me to come over. She actually, gave me the paperwork. She didn't say a word to me. She just gave it to me. And it was very emotional for me and her. Initially I could not actually continue reading the paperwork, but when I pulled myself together, I read it. Actually found out that I had a different name at birth, and that my name was actually changed. So of course, that for me was hard as well, to know that, Samara was not my birth name. But, since then, I've reached out to Maryland Department of Social Services. Of course, I called you, Regina. You were very instrumental in assisting me with my search and reunion services, and completed the ancestry DNA. And that actually led me to my birth aunt, who in turn led me to my birth mother. And so I have been in touch with actually both maternal and paternal sides. My birth mother is still living. However, my birth father is deceased. So I will not be able to meet him. However, he did have, or does still have, several siblings still living that I'm going to be in touch with. I talk with them. We text, talk, and then I also have additional sisters, and I'm no longer the older sister. So that's definitely something for me to work through.
Yeah, well, we're gonna talk about that too. So, I am Regina. Like I said, I was adopted. I knew about it since 1976, when my parents told me. I'll never forget, because I was watching Soul Train. They stopped me from watching Soul Train. That was the only thing I was worrying about, and I always could remember that, because I was like, really, right now? Because they were doing the little board, and they were doing the spelling. I wanted to read the board. See, y'all, the old school people know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
The scramble board.
Scramble board. So they told me, they said I was loved, and she couldn't take care of me in the way, but they came in and they did the same kind of thing with Joy said. They kind of told you that you were loved all the way around the board, and it never really affected me at that moment. It more affected me when I got outside in the world and I started hearing about how people describe, or they think about adoption. They thought about adoption as you was thrown away. Nobody, your parents didn't want you. You were given away, more than saying you were placed in another family. They don't use place. They use you were given away, like you was a piece of rag or something. I think you start your life off as being someone that wasn't wanted, even though you have a family, but the world made you feel like you wasn't wanted. And they didn't realize that they didn't know I was adopted. They were talking their truth. They speaking what they believed in. And they didn't know that I was adopted. So when I started taking in that talk, I decided to make it a secret and not tell nobody, because I didn't want to use it against me. So that's how I found out that I was adopted in 1976. But I kept it a secret until 2020. When I turned 50 years old, I decided to tell the world that I was adopted. So that's how my story was. So as you see, the title of the show is No Longer a Secret. And if you could notice in everybody's little story, there was some kind of secrecy involved in adoption. I chose mine early, Joy chose hers early, and you didn't know because it was a secret. So as you see, it pieced together the secrecy of adoption, and it's like a taboo topic that we want to kind of dive into today. So how do you feel about being adopted? I'll start with Joy. Let's kind of go around the horn like that. How do you feel about being adopted?
Wow. How do I feel? I think through this journey, I'm learning more. I'm realizing that some of the things that I felt over the years, when I felt out of place, or I felt different, or I felt as, you know, maybe I wasn't lovable, because it goes back to the things that you hear in the media and things people say in terms of, well, you were given up, and no one cared for you enough to keep you. So when you hear some of those themes that come along with things that go on in the media and little jokes that people say, I didn't feel good about it. So it was something, again, that I knew but just didn't talk about. It was easier just to keep living life, and then different things would make it trigger. So I think I don't know. It's really hard to figure out how I felt about it. How I feel about it now is that I think it's something that I know I have to deal with and that I have to come to grips with. And through counseling and support groups and talking with other adoptees, adopted parents, and birth parents, I'm learning a lot about the journey that makes me feel like there is some things that can be normal about all this if all of us really let's talk and then start talking about adoption.
Yeah, and that's the thing you said was it's hard to really pinpoint how you feel, but yet you feeling things.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense, it's
Yeah.
hard to describe to some people. When you are put in a position that you have no control over, okay, we have no control over being adopted. We had no decision in this. We were birthed into this situation, and we have to deal with the cards were dealt with us. You know what I'm saying? And then when you're in a world that doesn't accept it overall, they feel it, you know, and mostly I'm about to get on my soapbox shop. So mostly it's about people who are insecure with themselves, period. Okay. We are targets because if they don't feel good about themselves, that's like anybody would tease somebody. If, you know, when they really are insecure about themselves, they like to pull things. That's their trigger with you. If they know they got that and they also know they're going to shoot that gun. Because we know that because we hear it before you even knew we was adopted. We never told you, but we heard what you talked beforehand. So we know that we got to keep it a secret because we know what you think about it already. And as if it's you, it's going to be way more than you out there. So we know that, you know, kids are cruel. Kids are very cruel. So if I just nicely tell you as a friend, like, you know, I want to talk to you, you know, let you know I'm adopted. You don't know that's gonna be turned back on you one day when you get into an argument, whatever. Like, that's why your parents didn't want you anyway. It's going to come out eventually. And so that's why we want to talk to Let's Talk audience to educate you on things that maybe you never had to deal with because you were birthed by your parents. So you never had to deal with something like this. But it is a sensitive topic because we are told that we're not wanted. You know what I'm saying? So we want you to understand that we are blessed 4 times over because God took us through 4 parents and blessed our lives. So we are blessed and highly favored because we had parents that brought us in this world and we got parents that took care of us. A lot of us don't get them choices. We just get who we got when we were birthed. So I'm not saying one is better than the other, but let's just, you know, put into perspective that we are blessed 4 times. So, Samara, you want to talk about anything about how you felt because you're fresh in this? She's only 3 months in, y'all.
Right.
So, how do you feel about now? Because our conversations that we had, and you meeting your birth mother and your sister situation, you know, how do you feel about all of that?
So for me, like you said, it is still fresh. I'm still going through a range of emotions, and more specifically because, you know, my parents that raised me aren't here to, you know, answer any questions that, you know, my sister and I actually have regarding, you know, my adoption. So, you know, that's just kind of the unknown. I'm happy, you know, to have found, you know, my birth families, to be able to establish that relationship with them. I'm torn between my sister that I grew up with, and I have biological sisters as well. I'm kind of torn, you know, because I'm that fixer. I'm that type of person that, you know, I have to make sure everything's right for everybody. If it's not right, I'm the one that pretty much disregards my own self-care to make sure that everybody else is you know, good. So for me, you know, it's definitely a range of emotions for me that, you know, through counseling, talking to other adoptees, I'm working through, you know, those issues. You know, not good, you know, not bad. It's just something that I personally have to deal with because I grew up all my life thinking that my parents, you know, were my biological parents. And to find out that they were not, it just kind of was disheartening. But you know, on the flip side, I am blessed that I did have parents that loved me enough to know that they couldn't take care of me, to have me placed in another home with a family that could actually take care of me.
Yeah, and you don't mind, I want to kind of tap on that a little bit, the counseling part, and we all kind of tapped on that because I had to get counseling, and that was made me stand in my truth to know who I was and realize that I am blessed and highly favored, and I am a child of God, and I know that I'm here for a purpose, and He would not allow us to go what we went through for no reason. We went through what we went through because He wanted to strengthen us, and he wanted us to go through this stuff because he needed us to be those soldiers for him and to do what we're doing right now. This is why he had us go through what we went through, to do what we're doing as we speak, is to be an advocate for adopted people and let other ones know. Because if we feel, the three of us feel the same exact way, there's millions of us out there that feel the same way, that we feel that we are best kind of outsiders, and we want to let y'all know, let's, like Joy said, normalize this. This is very normal. This is not something that's abnormal. This is normal. I don't know if it's different in the Black community as in any other communities. I'm not sure of that. I mean, Joy, if you know anything about that, you could just time on that one. But I do know that it's a more tabooish topic in our race of being adopted. And when you had mentioned about your sister, we had a conversation about that. And it's really touching because we all have this thing that we all connect. We are people pleasers. We are. You want to raise your hand? Anybody else be adopted as people pleasers? Okay,
that's one of the traits.
That's one of the traits.
Mm-hmm.
We are people pleasers because in back of our head we figure like, okay, we got to let people like us because somebody gave us away, so we got to make sure that it's something. It's not like we intentionally do it, but it's just there.
And those subtle things that sit in your mind, and where you also find that you'll find there's some adoptees that will do things that would constantly stay in trouble, but then you'll have another set of adoptees who will try to be the perfectionists because they don't want to let people down. Here we have families that took us in when they didn't have to, and now we want to try to make sure we do everything right and everything perfect. Because in some of our minds, it sits in there, well, would they give me away if everything wasn't perfect, if I didn't do exactly what I was supposed to do? So there's so many people on different ends of the spectrum with all of that. And one of the things you asked, Regina, was how do people in other races? I work with the Miriam's Heart, and that's the organization that has very diverse in terms of the families that are there, the adopted families. And they have the same issues, the same challenges that there are adoption issues. They go across race. But as you said earlier, we do find in the Black community that we really don't talk about adoption. And it's interesting that we really don't, because when you go back to slavery and you go back to other time periods, grandma was always taking care of somebody else's child. Auntie was always taking care of somebody else's child. So it's not unheard of. But even then, those were secrets. Those were secrets that we just didn't talk about. We knew who grandma had was another person's child in the family, but we didn't always know the story that was going on. And like Samaria was saying, that sometimes you don't find out that stuff until people die, until people get really sick. And if we start talking about this, the three of us here today introducing and sharing three different journeys gets other people familiar with the stories that are out there. There are real people that go along with these stories that have something to share and hopefully help everybody else.
Yeah, and getting counseling is very important. It's very important to get counseling in this because you're not going to be able to kind of sort. It's too much. It's too much. You have to get someone to help sort out these feelings because you feel abandonment, you feel lost, you feel like, why you didn't tell me, and then you have to deal with a whole new family. We're going to talk about that later and how that really works. So I always would say, get counseling. Even though you think you don't need it, you need it. You really do need it because our situation is so unique and so different. There's nothing wrong with that if you get help. So do y'all want to tell us what your birth names were? Are y'all comfortable with that?
Mine was Sherry Lynn.
Okay, mine was LaShonda Tristan Moten.
And mine was actually Regina. My birth mother named me Regina, actually. And my mom, my adopted mother, Doris, they told her that. They were like, her mother named her Regina. And she said, no, I want to keep that name. I want her to have that connection to her birth mother. I'll just give her her middle name. So Renee is my middle name, but I was named by my birth mother. So that's interesting. See, I like that. So I want to talk about what Joy had discussed about the experiencing the traumas. She had gave us a good example of how when babies are born and what the doctors tell you. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, well, I was adopted at 2 months, and I think we mentioned earlier, sometimes when people think about adoption and they think that, oh, Joy, you were adopted at 2 months. You didn't have any issues. There's nothing that could have happened to you. And I always go back to when we see pregnant women and they have a child in their womb, what do we ask them to do? We ask them to play music. We ask them to talk to their belly. We ask the fathers to talk to the belly, to lean in, to touch and feel, because brain research tells us that all of that has an impact. So I just kind of remind people that just because I was adopted at 2 months old doesn't mean that there weren't any trauma experiences, while I was in the womb. You talk about, think about the stress level that goes along with birth mothers as they're struggling these 9 months to make those decisions. That all has an impact on the child that's growing in their belly. And we have to stop diminishing a person's challenges with adoption by saying, oh, you were adopted early, so you really don't have any problems. And as adoptees, we have to realize that there is brain research that speaks to the truth of all of this, and that not listening to the things, again, that we hear on the media and buy into that. And then again, we start questioning what we're feeling, and does this really make sense, or am I kind of just making this up, or am I going crazy?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it is. So imagine, so let's break it down. So let's say you do what the doctor tell you. They tell you to play Mozart and classical, and they tell you to take the little headsets and put them on the belly and get the father to speak in the belly so they'll know your father's voice. And so imagine our three birth mothers who were all young, who all was in a situation that they had to decide to give up their child. So every day for 9 months, they were stressing and trauma filled, and tomorrow she was sick when she was a baby. She was born sickly. You know what I'm saying? So imagine the stress of all of that day in and day out when you have young mothers who was told that, you can't keep them. You got, you're too young. And this is the 60s and 70s, y'all. So it's a different world. It's not like it is now. So imagine why we have so much in common is because those things did affect us, in our whole system. And it did affect us. The validation issues, the insecurities, the people pleasing, all of that stems from what we were fed because they were stressed out.
Yeah.
So it makes a lot of sense why a lot of us are similar when it comes to that stuff, because the thing did make a difference when we was in the wombs. It did make a difference. That's why they ask you not to be that way, because you do change the whole setup of your child if they come through a trauma-based pregnancy. If you don't take care of yourself, you don't take your vitamins, whatever the case is, you do affect your child. You want to say anything, Mara, about that?
I'll share this because I was actually born at 7 months. So, my birth mother wasn't able to get the care that she needed, just for various reasons. But I was born at 7 months, and I spent the first 2 months in the hospital. And then the first year of my life, I was in and out of the hospital with various medical issues. So, of course, for me, looking back on my life now and what I found out happened to me as a baby, a lot of my health issues now actually stemmed from, my birth and during that time frame of my life.
Yeah, and especially now we were talking about things that we have in common. We have a lot of things in common too. We all been divorced. We all been divorced. And reading Joy's book, we have a lot in common on how we used to date and what we expect from men, because we wanted them to keep feeding us. You want to talk about that a little bit, Joy?
Yeah, I think growing up, although I never verbally said it, I always thought it, which it was not a good thing either, that if your mother didn't love you and keep you, then who else is going to love you and keep you? So I was constantly staying in relationships for fear that another one might not come along. Afraid that people would leave me, fears of abandonment, dealing with loss, having identity issues, low self-esteem, not thinking that I was worthy of even moving into healthier relationships, but that fear of not being lovable, which in hindsight, I can now that once I met that group of adult adoptees and actually met some birth parents and heard them talk about the struggles that they faced in making those decisions to relinquish their children back then, I realized there was love there. there was love there was planning there, but throughout my life, all I thought was that I wasn't lovable, and therefore I stayed in unhealthy relationships, wearing a mask, pretending that things were okay, and just going along to get along because I wasn't sure if I would find somebody else, because my self-esteem was just so low.
And so what we just discussed made sense about the birth part, because remember, Samara just found out, but she had the same traits that we discussed, and she just found out.
Mm-hmm.
So that does prove the fact that she just knew, but the traumas and stuff that you went through when you were younger did manifest into what we discussing, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So, and another thing about adoption that, you know, a lot of people think, they feel that if somebody takes you, you're supposed to be happy. Stop complaining. You have a family that took you. What are you complaining about? You ain't an orphan. You ain't out on the street. You ain't homeless. So why you need to go find your other family?
Mm-hmm.
Why you need to go find them? Why? We took care of you. You don't need to find them. Why you need them for? They didn't want you. So now you want to go find people who didn't want you? It's so many things. I try to tell people, the best way to describe it is, I have identical twin boys. I birthed twins, but I'm not a twin. I cannot tell you why they could talk to each other and just look at each other, have a full conversation with each other. I birthed them, but I'm not them. There's some things that you're not going to understand. If you're not an adopted child, you're not going to understand the voice. You're not going to get it. It's easy for other people who are not adopted, or people in the adopted family, to tell you, don't go look for your family. You're enough. It's not the point of you're enough. We're adding, we're not subtracting. We're not trying to get rid of, we're not switching off families. Like, okay, I'm going to find them, and I'm going to get rid of y'all, and I'm going to go with them. No, it's called, I need to find out where I came from. Just like you know where you came from, I need to know where I came from. I should get that same given right, just like you have. Yours was given to you, right? That's nothing to ask for. You honestly get it by you being birthed by your mother. You got it. I just want the same thing you have. What is the big deal about that? There's a movie out called The Two Mothers, or The Second Mother. What's her name? Essence. Remember the actress Essence? She played on Two and a Half, Sister, Half and Half.
Yes.
She has a movie with Lynn. Y'all tell me what her name is.
Lynn Whitfield.
Yes, Lynn Whitfield is the mother, and Jasmine. Whitley.
Jasmine Guy.
She's the other mother. She's the adopted mother, and Lynn is the birth mother. And it was a movie about that. And she had a sister. The same scenario is Samara have a sister, and the sister got mad at her because she wanted to go find her birth mother, and she got mad at her about it. But she just like, why? What's the big deal? And the mother did not want her to go find it. So this is really real, y'all. This is a real thing. You know, they had a movie about it and everything. So
one of the things, if I can jump in, one of the things that I found when I was beginning my search was that people would say, you know, well, weren't your adopted parents enough? Or can't you just forget that you were adopted? And I always connect it back to when we have single parents raising children, we don't tell them just forget your other parent.
Right.
So why would folks think, and when I say it, people laugh, because it's like, yeah, we don't say that. We tell them, you know, you want them to get to know the other side of their family, even if it's not the parent. Sometimes you want them to get to know their relatives because we believe that that's important. So wouldn't the same be true for adopted children, for adopted young adults, for adopted youth, that they also have the same opportunity to get to know their parents? And the other thing, Regina, you touched it right on the head. It's not a subtraction problem. It is an addition problem. And I always mention, I'm a mother. I have 3 girls. And people question, well, how are you going to deal with your birth parents and your adopted parents? I said, you don't question that when you ask me about, do I love my children? You know that I love them, and I love all of them. So there's not going to be anything different when I have adopted parents and birth parents. They're all my parents. And just respect that, just the same way you do as you know that I'm a mother of 3 children.
Good point. My crew, y'all want to say anything? I know you've been writing, so go ahead.
I've been jotting down over here. I have been. It's been so much. First of all, I want to really applaud the 3 of you, you know, for standing up and just really sharing your story. And just listening to you doesn't sound like it's the easiest thing to do. But I'm really grateful that you're sharing on our platform tonight. It's amazing. Um, I did make a point, and you talked about it, about how adoption is not talked about. People, like you said, Gina, I think the word you used was taboo, right? It's really taboo, and people don't talk about it. But then you touched on it a little bit and discussed it. So this is a question. I'm not sure if you're going to get into it a little later.
Okay.
I just want to bring it out, but it's not really a question I have right now. But I just put mixed race adoptions, like your thoughts on that. But I do have a question as far as advocacy groups. Like, are there? I hear you all saying, talking about counseling for the adopted, but I'm listening, and it sounds like there should be some types of supports in place for the adopters,
Absolutely.
because you're saying all of the challenges that you've had because of your situation, because you were adopted. And I'm in my head, I'm thinking, okay, and then here's this individual who has welcomed you into their home and welcomed you into their lives, and now they're having to raise you with these challenges that you're having. So I'm just wondering if there are any types of advocacy out there for the not just the adopted, but the ones who are actually doing the adoptions, and any types of supports for them, any mandatory counseling that one has to go through before they actually adopt a child. Because I mean, this is, and Samara, you were saying that your mom never told you about it. So clearly there were some things, for some reason she wanted to keep that a secret. So maybe some people don't want to, I mean, maybe some adopt because they're unable physically to have children, right? So they adopt a child, thank God, but then they never tell anyone because of the shame of them not being able to have a child, or for whatever reason they never talk about it. So I'm wondering if there are some supports for those who do adopt, because it sounds like it's and Joy, Joy with an I, you said that you knew you were adopted, but it wasn't discussed often. So for some reason it wasn't discussed. That topic was suppressed for whatever reason. So I'm wondering what's in place to help those who do adopt to get through the whole process, and situations that are going on within them.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that are out there that are available now for adopted parents that were not, and even birth parents that weren't available when our parents, and our birth parents were pregnant with us. There's advocacy groups, there's national and regional adoption councils, adoption groups. There's You mentioned what other things we're talking about counseling for the adoptee, but there are mandatory and required things that folks have to do to get even to adopt nowadays, and even back then, but it's even more strict now, that the process can take a year, it can take 2 years, depending on where you are, because of all the requirements of what's in place. What you hear often from adopted parents is that then there's a lack after the adoption happens. So that's when you really need those extra supports, those
Absolutely.
extra training sessions, because as you're going along and walking along that life, one of the things I've been reading about is that everybody's adopted child is going to have their different experiences at different times. So you can't say when they're 5, oh, this is going to happen, or when they're 7, this is going
Right.
to happen. But if we begin to, because we don't talk about it, and we don't talk about it publicly, people have no idea where to go. I didn't
Right.
know that there was a national conference that took place right at the college next door to me, and this past year was the 38th year of their
Wow.
existence. So this stuff has been around for a portion of my lifetime, but did my family know that? Did did the counselors at school know that? There's
Right.
a disconnect with the information, and because there's such shame and secrecy behind all of it, the information doesn't get to anybody.
Yeah.
So yes, there are training sessions. Yes, there are support groups that have all 3 members of the adoption triad, the adoptee, the adopted parent, and the birth parent in it. Yes, there are adoption competent counselors that are out there. You can ask if they're adoption competent. That means they have had some kind of training as it relates to working with adopted families. And the other thing you asked about were mixed race adoptions. And I think we'll probably come back to that one.
Yeah, we'll come back to that definitely. But everything you said is true. I actually, in this journey, the last year and some change now, I've been approached by different groups, and one it was called The Table, and they located in Fort Worth, Texas, and they actually have a group for the birth mothers, and they meet once a month, and they meet and they go out and socialize, but they talk about things, and they still go through it after the transition, after the transaction is done. They still go through it. It don't go away because like I told somebody, imagine most of us who are mothers, imagine you in the hospital with your child. You go through the pregnancy, you go through the birth, you're in the hospital, you're enjoying your child, you hugging your child, everybody's happy. Imagine the birth mother, in a matter of a couple of minutes, some woman walks through the door and says to them, okay, you have so much time left, we have to take him or her, and go ahead and say your goodbyes. This is what people go through. The birth mothers go through all the time. They got to say goodbye to a child they just gave birth to, they had in their stomach for 9 months, and they got to tell them goodbye for the rest of their lives. And they watch that woman walk out the door with a child. Imagine them going further down the hall and further down the hall to the point you can't see them no more, and that's it. Child's gone. Imagine that. That messes with your head.
Yeah, and you also have to think too, your body. When you give birth to a child, your body doesn't snap back immediately. There's some things that your body is still going to give you the images and the things that your body is going to go through from birthing and carrying that child.
Right, it doesn't go away.
That doesn't go away immediately.
It doesn't go away. So imagine the feeling when this woman goes home with no child, and she still has to deal with her body. She still got to deal with her mind. And now the world's telling her to just go back to normal. Just get back to normal. Go back to work. That's not normal, people. That's not a normal situation. Wow. And our mothers probably went through about a depression. They probably went through, things. And from what I was told, I know she went through stuff because that's not her personality. My mother had 2 other children. I was the youngest. She's been a mother twice. She knows how this goes. So it's not easy to give up somebody, but the unconditional love of her to do that speaks volumes. People see it as a negative. It's not. When somebody could be big enough and say, I know I cannot do right by you, and you have a better chance going over here than me doing it. That's being selfish to try to keep somebody when you can't take care of them. But when you can say to yourself, I want you to get a fighting chance. I want you to get opportunities that I'm not able to give you. Unconditional love. That's unconditional love. When you love somebody enough to let them go. That speaks volumes to me. And that's why I know we talked about this. I have no remorse. I have no hatred. I love Patricia Ann Morton. I love Patricia Ann Morton because the opportunities I got with the Smithwicks and Nobles, I would never, ever had with them. And they know that. My sister told me this. My sister told me, she said, I hate that I was not raised with you, but the opportunities, and I see the way you were raised, she said, I would give that up any day for you to get the opportunity that you received. I'm happy that I got you now, but I would never want to rob you from them opportunities that you got being raised with them. That's love. See what I'm saying? So it's very complicated because you got to deal with a lot of emotions and a lot of things. Being adopted is not cookie cutter and not easy. And you're getting it from somebody who knew since I was 7. So you got somebody who knew 3 months ago. And I'm still emotional about it. It doesn't go away. So, Carl and Joy, y'all have something you want to say? Because we got to get to these comments. We got tons of comments.
Wow.
Yes. I just want to know, I don't want to skip too far ahead, but I just wanted to get my bit in here just in case I don't get a chance to.
Yeah, go ahead.
How do you feel, and I'm going to ask all 3 of y'all, when you finally decide to come out with, your experience that you have been adopted to friends and family, what would you recommend how people, the kind of support you expect from friends and people when you come out and say, look, I just found out I'm adopted, Samara, your situation, or I've known I'm adopted, I'm telling you I'm adopted. What do you expect? What kind of support do you expect from friends and family, or that you've had in your life that didn't know this? What would you expect in that realm? So,
So I'll share. For me, I just expect, if you were my friend, I expected, them to pretty much support me through my journey. Um, my sister that I grew up with actually encouraged me to find my birth families. I was not going to do it initially. I had said, no, no way, my life is fine, I'm good. She was like, no, Samara, you really need to know where you came from. So because she encouraged me, I was able to go ahead and find my birth families. So I really do, and I still expect those that, know me, to kind of support me through this journey. I had a conversation with my direct reports at work. I actually told them, what was going on, because if it started affecting my work performance, I wanted them to know like what emotionally I was going through, because I did not take a lot of time off of work after I found out. And so, right. So that's
Right.
kind of, what I was expecting. I have 3 children. As soon as I found out, I kept my children in the loop. I didn't want something to happen to me and then they find the same legal paperwork documents that I found, and then they have questions. So for me, it's while I'm new at, finding this out and being an advocate, it is very important for me to break that stigma of, ooh, you were adopted. It's a secret. I just don't believe in that. And I do believe in, being transparent.
Excellent.
That's a good. That's perfect. Perfect.
Yeah, I was
Go ahead, Joy.
I was going to say, because of my experience with going to the support groups while I was going through all this, I got to learn a lot from them. And some of the things that I learned dealt with everybody's not going to get it. Everybody's not going to agree with your decision. Everybody is not going to understand how you feel and this wide range of emotions that you're going to go throughout all this. And that's okay. That just means that they might not be ready for those conversations that or things that you want to say. So you really have to find your although they're friends, they can, and I shared with Regina before, it's called secondary wounding. Why can't you just forget that you're adopted?
Wow.
And I would take that and not say anything where it's killing me on the inside because I just want to go off and say, would you say that to anybody else? So then, but it's those experiences that I realized I would take things in the beginning, and after a while I was like, nah, that's hurting my feelings. And I have to say something. And then when you explain things to people, when I use that example of why are you saying that, can I have my adopted parents and my birth parents in my life? And I use the example of me being the mother of 3 children, then the light bulb goes off for them. So sometimes people just don't know what they don't know until you put it into a framework that they can understand. They could understand a mother of 3 girls loving all her kids. They couldn't understand a woman with birth parents and adopted parents, that you could actually love both of those sets of parents. The other thing you mentioned was for friends, my expectation was if you have a question, ask me. Don't ask around me. Ask me directly. Don't ask my kids. Don't ask my mother. Don't ask my father. Ask me. I'm open about it. If it's something that I don't want to answer, I will respectfully say, that's something I'm still working on. I don't have an answer for that. So, and respect my response. And the other thing I would say is that I just learned because of my experience with other adoptees who were going through or had already experienced all this, that even moving and going into new families and finding all this stuff out, everybody's not going to be happy for you. And that's okay. And in our regular families, everybody doesn't always get along. So don't think that an adopted family or the birth family is going to be any different. And the last one that I really had to check some of my friends on was, my parents to you have always been my parents. So don't start switching up with now you don't know how to address them. They are still my parents. So, keep it 100. Those are my parents. That's all. Those are the only parents you always knew up until 4 years ago. But also respect my and I had to get on my husband about this. My biological parents, my birth parents. Don't use that term, your real parents. No. Who defines what real is? I have biological parents and I have adoptive parents. But if you've only known my adoptive parents as my parents, then that's all you need to say. Joy, how's your parents doing? I know who you're talking about.
It's like foreign language, right?
Yeah.
I think sometimes they do that because they just get kind of like eggshelly. Like they're like, I don't know what to say, because it's new to them. It's new to them, so they don't understand it. And I guess sometimes they think they don't want to step on your toes, but they end up doing more damage. Just not
More
being normal.
exactly.
Just be normal. It's okay. Just be normal. Well, I'll say
Yeah.
this real quick. We gotta get to these comments. They are like a million comments. Okay, so when you have friendships come, like I always say to people, friendship is just like a relationship, a relationship. You just don't have sex. Okay. There's always changes in relationships. Relationships grow. Relationships change. Just like the other person would change, just like you would change. Okay. This is just something that's going on in my life. It shouldn't change anything. If you don't, like she said, you don't know, ask a question. If you want to say, hey, I'm here for you. I just want to be supportive. Anything that I can do, then allow that person to tell you what they need from you or whatever like that. But I guarantee if you're real good friends with them, they will talk to you about things, because there's going to be a lot of ups and downs with this thing. There's a lot of ups and downs with this thing. And it's a lot of stuff that we got to deal with. Even though I exposed myself and I came out and everything, I'm still dealing with things, because it feels, how can I describe this? For example, perfect example. My father's mother passed away 5 years ago today. It's really weird to see pictures of my grandmother, who I don't know, never met, and she passed away. And all thing I could put up there is like, R.I.P. Grandma. Y'all know my family person. I'm all in with people. And it's like, it hurts me that I didn't know her. You know what I'm saying? Like, it really hurts me that I didn't get a chance to meet my grandmother. And just hearing stories about her and how wonderful she was and all the things I missed out on. I missed out on my birth mother. She passed away in 2007. I didn't get a chance to meet her. So I had to go by people's stories about her. And they say I look like her. I sound like her. It's great. I'm glad they said I got her. Like, I have her. Like, I'm her. They said I'm reincarnated, and they got their grandmother back. They got their mother back, because I'm like my mother. It's great to hear that stuff, but I would love to hear her. I asked them, like, do y'all have any videos of her? Anything I can hear her voice? I want to hear that voice. I want to. So it's a lot. It really is a lot. Like, I understand God's purpose and God's ways and divine order. It wasn't meant to happen that way, and I accept it. But it would just be nice to hear her voice, and just have some kind of connection with her on that level. Yeah. So it's difficult, but if a friend could understand, you're not going to get all the answers. You're not going to be able to help them all the way, because you don't understand it, because they don't understand it. They're learning as well. So just be like you would do with anything else. Just say, if you need me, if you want to cry, whatever, I'm here for you. That's all. You don't have to do nothing extra. Right. That's my answer. Carla, please get these comments. I don't know if you're going to be able to get through all these. It's a lot.
Okay. We got Hey Tasha TV. She said, hashtag that's my mom.
Hey,
so
represent. That's right. That's your mama.
Yep. She says, so proud.
She was one who didn't think that, I didn't tell my kids that I was adopted. They found out when my oldest was 9. They found my baby book that said I wasn't expected, I was selected. So they thought they were coming in the room to tell me that I was adopted. Mommy, we found this little card. I don't know if you knew that you were adopted. But along this journey, Tasha didn't actually think that this experience had anything to do with her. She said, oh, mommy, that's your thing. And now she just came to me a couple months ago and said, I realized how not knowing that side of the family, not knowing our family history, and not seeing people that actually look like us, how that impacts me as well. And so it took her 5 years, but but over time they realized how it impacts them as well.
Yes, and she says how she's so proud of you.
That's beautiful.
Tiffany Johnson says, so grateful to know Mrs. Joy.
Yeah, hey Tiffany.
Motown Renee says, God bless you all for sharing your stories, sending love especially to Regina Smithwick and Samara Sutton.
Hey Renee.
Hey Renee.
Shonda Littlefield says, I'm praying for you for healing and restoration.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Alonzo Lamo McLean says, known Samara for over 30 years, and she has always been a big sis to me. And if anything, this will draw us closer together.
Oh,
nice.
That was nice.
Great.
Tanya Arnold says, I believe there's a generation of parents that either went to legal routine and allowed their children to be adopted. Then there are those children that are passed to family, friends, or strangers to be raised. I believe there is trauma associated with both situations.
Absolutely.
Oh, definitely.
Yes.
Agree.
Halima Jones, I'm so proud of each one of you who share their story.
Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate
So
that.
war.
Yvonne Morton says, hey, cuz.
That's my cousin. That's one of my new cousins. Hi, cuz.
And Alonzo Lemo McLean again says, you always have a void that's missing and you need that filled.
Amen. Amen.
Yes.
Yes. Renee Cardwell says that was a good movie. They were talking
It was, wasn't it?
Yes. Yes. Hey, Tasha TV, Joey's daughter, says she loves me the most. Oh, little sibling rivalry there.
I know, right?
Alonzo, he says, if anything, don't discourage me from reaching out to my birth parents.
Absolutely.
Help me
That's a
along my
good one.
journey.
That is a good one.
Wow.
What we can do to
And
help.
people do it all the time.
Yes. Yes. Donna Pazant says, I think the portrayal of adoption on TV and in movies has a lot to do with how we grew up viewing adoption. There is always a secret somewhere. Yes.
And I think
Yes.
This Is Us was the TV show that is starting to change the scenarios we're seeing about adoption. And now every time you turn on a TV show, there's an adoption theme. So I think it's starting to pop up everywhere. And I'm glad that they're taking a more positive spin on, it's not the crazy adoptee going after their parents and all that other stuff. They have more positive and more factual information included in shows nowadays.
Yeah, it does.
I agree with that.
Yeah. Aurora Hill says, people pleaser and perfectionist. Wow, what a revelation. Thank you, Joy, for sharing your life. Yes.
Isn't it funny how that links? That's really
weird.
Yep. Renee Cardwell said, that's an amazing response. I stand in support with you, Samara Sutton text.
All right.
All right.
Nice.
Absolutely. Thank you. Faith Bynum says, thank you all for sharing your life.
Oh,
Thanks,
thank you for listening.
Fran Barr says, Samara, you are my bonus daughter and we love you and so happy for your journey.
Oh.
So that's my aunt. That was my link on Ancestry.
Oh, wow. That's right. That's right. That's Aunt Fran. That's right.
Yeah, Aunt Fran.
Hey, Aunt Fran.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Ancestry, I think, has helped played a part in many
big time.
Yes. Shelby Foy says, so proud of my bestie, Samara. Thank you all for sharing. Yes.
Yeah, she's been there since day one.
Excellent.
Thanks, Shelby. Love you, girl.
Faith Bynum says, hopefully this platform will help others share their stories.
We hope so too. That's what we hoping too.
Yes. Latoria Gaither says, hey, Sissy, I'm looking forward to getting to know you and finally having you in my life. Continue to. Yes. Thank you.
My babysitter.
Oh, that's
babysitter.
Awesome.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Yes, she talked so much about y'all. She loves y'all to death. That's how it's supposed to be. Thank you for supporting her. That's beautiful.
Yes, thank you.
That's beautiful. So, Joy, with the why, you have anything you need to say?
I just want to say I applaud each and every one of you for opening up and being transparent about something that makes you so vulnerable to other people. And I just applaud you. And you guys have just blessed my heart. Fighting back tears when you guys are talking, because not tears of sadness, but tears of joy. Absolutely. Because you're able to have such love and compassion for your adopted parents as well as your birth parents, and to hear you all share that love and not share bitterness or hatred, that is phenomenal, and hats off to you guys. Awesome job.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, when you go through the adoption process, you have to understand, if you're someone who's thinking about finding your family, I was just blessed to be accepted in both sides. You don't know what you're going to get. When you go out there to find them, you don't know there's no promises, no guarantees. Yeah. You hope that they want you, but a lot of times they still have issues with themselves for doing what they did, and you're like a walking billboard of their mistake, or they consider it a mistake at the time. So you got to understand, sometimes they, we're all individuals, we all have issues, we all have problems. Just because a mother has a baby doesn't mean that she doesn't have insecurity issues. She don't have validation issues. She don't have, like, everybody has something. Nobody's perfect. So, but I always tell people, if it's in your heart and your spirit and it's filling you up to do it, just do it and just let God figure all everything else out. Don't try to figure out the pieces. You're not going to be able to you're not going to be able to figure it out. Just do what you feel is right for you. And I would say to this, if you adopted a child, and I have done so myself, my oldest child, my daughter Regina, I adopted her. Okay. I adopted her, and still nobody in the family knew I was adopted. My husband didn't know I was adopted. My kids didn't know I was adopted. I didn't tell anyone that I was adopted. Okay. So I would say to you, let them feel comfortable enough to go and find their birth family. Mm-hmm. Let them know they can come to you and talk to you about it. Mm-hmm. I know people from going through this, and I don't know, Joy, if you want to chime in on this one. I know people going through this journey the last year who talked to me and told me they wait for their parents to die before they go find their birth parents. Mm-hmm. Because they know that they don't want them to go find them. Mm-hmm. And they feel that they are doing disservice. They feel like they're not honoring them. They're kind of telling them, like, well, you didn't do a good enough job, so I'm going to find my birth parents now. And that's not what it's about. But you shouldn't have your kids to feel like they have to wait for you to die before they go find out about their family. That's not fair. That's not fair. You really have to be honest and open with them, and then let them know, if you ever want to find them, let me know, and I'm here for you. How do you feel about that, Joy? Because I know that's something that a lot of people go through.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think as the adoptee, you have to figure out when is the best time and place in your life to do this, and realize that it is going to be an emotional roller coaster, and that you are going to need the support of your adopted parents and a few good friends around you, and select those folks that you should share your story with carefully. Because everybody doesn't understand. Even though they are a friend, they're not going to understand some of the things that you may say in anger or in frustration, and that you don't want them to twist it around later on. Find a good counselor. Counseling is important. Counseling, and if you can find a support group, find a support group, because those who've been through some of the things you're about to go through, if you're going to do a search and try to be in a reunion, they'll be able to help you talk through some of that stuff. Because one of the things, and Regina, you touched on it, like right on the head, is we struggle with loyalty. So are you loyal to your birth family? Are you loyal to your adopted family? How can you be loyal to both? And then all of those things going back and forth with what everybody else is saying in your ear creates those challenges that we then struggle with in silence again, because we don't know who to talk to, because we don't know what you're going to say or what your opinion is. And we also don't want you to judge us based on some of the things we may say as we share our journeys.
Yeah, and that's the truth. And that's definitely true. Like, for example, Thanksgiving's coming up. So this is the first year, because I found my birth parents and family in the midst of the COVID. So we just kind of video chatted for a year. Oh, wow. Now the world's over and people are starting to do holidays again. Thanksgiving's coming up. I don't know what to do. I'm being honest with you. I've been invited to go to my mother's side. My brother and sister, we all told me doing, Thanksgiving. So I'm telling my mother that raised me, like, okay, Mom, they want you to come. They call her grandma. My nieces and nephews call her grandma, and they love her. They're like, please tell her to come. I want her to be here. We want her to come. They included her with it, but because of COVID, she's older. She's like, I don't know if I'll be around to meet people and stuff. But she's like, you could go ahead, go enjoy your family. But just like Joy just said, you feel like, oh, I want to go, but what are you gonna do? She's like, I'm here with my sisters. You're fine. Go. But you still in your head kind of like, oh, I never spent Thanksgiving without you. Like, I don't know. Like, this is the things that we fight with.
And those are common themes that come up in our support group before every holiday. Who do you now spend it with? You did all the searching to find these families, but then now you have to make time for it. And even with conversations, and early on, I had a little calendar. I would write down if I spoke to my birth father this day, my birth mother this day, had this conversation with my, my mother, my father, and then made sure. And then you had to circle back. Okay, oh, now I got to make sure I go back. So it's all that all over the place. And holidays can be extremely stressful. I haven't dealt with it very well. My thing is just that I'll be home, and then I don't have to worry about dividing myself up. But my adoptive father always says, that's not a good plan. You have to start making sure that you go out and divvy up yourself. And then you get married on top of that, and all the parts of the family are close and close-knit. It's a struggle. It's a
It is
struggle.
a struggle. This is my first struggle. So it's kind of like, I'm working through this now because, like you said, you feel like you letting somebody down if you make a decision,
Right.
But let me see what else we have to talk about. God, this is so good. Hold on. Okay, so this is something. So, Tamara, who do you look like?
So I look like my mom, but my birth mom, but I really look like her sister, my aunt. But growing up, I thought I looked like my, adopted dad.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. I look like a mixture of both. I look more like my mother from this down. Every single one of us has dimples. Every single one of us has dimples. All of us. The smile and everything is them. This up is my father. This is my father, the linkiness, like the linky fingers and long feet. But I have my mother's legs. I have pictures of her, and I have her legs all day. And I have the body shape. Me and my sister are shaped the same. We like pegs. We small on the bottom, and we got broad shoulders, and we wider on top. I'm shaped. My mother was shaped like that. She had broad shoulders but narrow legs. So I have a mixture of both of them. When I'm with the father side, I look like I look like my sister on my father's side. But when I get with them, I look like my brother or my sister on their side. So I kind of blend on both ends.
Yeah.
But I can see both sides of me all day.
And I
But
think
I
I have
act
that
like my
same
mother from what I was told.
experience.
Joy.
Yeah, I think I have that same experience. I think if I'm with my father's people, I look like him. I have their stature. When I first met my aunt, his youngest sister, we were doing a show, and I had on a short dress, and she said, "Those are our legs. I knew that was you. I knew you were ours when I saw those legs." And then my aunt went on his side as well. When I heard her voice, I'm like, okay, that's where my raspy voice comes from. So those things that I worried about as a kid, my legs were long and skinny, my voice was raspy like an old lady. And I realized it made sense in that family. It just didn't make sense in the family that I was being raised in. And then as I look at my smile, my nose, and my face structure, I see my birth mother. So I'm not sure. I'm still trying to figure that out.
Yeah, but everybody said that I look like my dad who raised me, Smitty.
Yeah.
They were like, you look like Smitty because we got the big old smiles, we got all them teeth. So they were like, you look like your daddy. And I said, y'all, when somebody feeds you long enough, you start looking like them. Because, people always try to put that match together because most people are born into their family. So they automatically try to figure you out. And there were some people who asked me, like, well, who you look like? Because I'm tall. My mother's 5'2", my father's 5'8", and I'm 5'10". So, and a lot of the men in my family, I'm taller than them too. They're not that tall. Cause my granddad was only like 5'5", 5'6". So a lot of my family, I'm taller than most of them. So when I met my father, he's 6'4", and my brother Anthony is like 6'5", and my sister's 5'9". So I found where my height is at. So I'm like, okay, now I understand what's going on.
It makes sense. Yeah.
It all makes sense. So it's a good feeling to put those things together to look.
Sure.
I stared at them for hours. Like I would be in the house and I just be like this, staring at them. They think I'm crazy. I'm just like watching their hands and like this finger I have. Me and my dad got the same finger. It looked like it's broken. He was driving one day and I said, "Oh, Dad, we got the same finger." What's wrong with you? He was like, "What is wrong with this child?" Because I was like, "Oh my gosh!" I always thought I broke this finger when I was younger. My mother kept asking, "Did you break your finger? What happened?" I was like, "I don't know. It didn't hurt or nothing." And I just went through it. But when I saw him, he was driving. I was sitting on that side of his finger. He was shifting the gear. I was like, You got the finger. And then my grandfather has the same finger. My grandfather has it too. I'm like, yes, I feel complete. I feel
Mhm.
complete. So it's like
Because then it makes sense. It makes
it
sense to you
makes
when you get to do
sense.
that. Yeah.
Little things
Whereas
in your
it
body
felt
make sense.
different from everybody else in your adopted family. Nobody else had, a finger like that, or
Yeah.
not a lot of people had in my family had a big forehead. They all had nice little small forehead. So when I saw my birth mother and birth father, I'm like, okay,
I
now
see
I
the forehead. Things that people take for granted is so
absolutely.
exciting for us. It's so exciting. I mean, when I saw my sister for the first time, she like I was trying to surprise her, and she ended up surprising me. I was at Walmart getting something to call her and act like I wasn't there, and she was coming through the same doors, and
Oh my
I
goodness.
didn't see her. My other sister, my I think her husband saw me first and saw my father and said his name, and she was all the way like 4 hours in Walmart down. She started screaming. She threw her phone. She threw her keys. She started charging at me, and I was like, and I saw her coming. I was like, "That's my sister. She looked just like me." My sister. I mean, it was just amazing, you know. She would have seemed like hugging me, and she was like, "I can't let you go. I can't let you go." It's a great feeling, you know. Those reunions are really, really like. We're
Yeah.
gonna talk real quick about the reunions because both of y'all have good reunion stories. But to meet them in person was just so amazing. I was so nervous. My stomach was like, oh, I was just whew, 50 years, and then you just, hello, I'm your dad. Hello, I'm your sister. Hello, I'm your brother. I'm like, oh my, and I'm an only child. I don't have this. I never had any of this. So being the only child and now knowing I have sisters and brothers, I have 6 of them, and I have a father that's still alive, and aunts and uncles that I talk to now. So it's just been amazing. Small, you want to talk about your recent reunion you just had less than a month ago with your birth mom?
Yes. So my sister, my sissy that I grew up with, traveled with me back to Maryland. Of course, I'm here in North Carolina, but we traveled back to Maryland. And when I physically saw, my birth mom, my mom, it was just like so natural. Like I literally have known her all of my life. Like there has not been any time that passed, and just that initial hug that I received was so loving and just so welcoming. And it was like, oh, I can't believe I can put my hands around you. It was just so awesome. And I've only met, my birth mom and that side. And I'm in the process of getting, on my birth dad's side, getting that scheduled to meet my siblings and my aunts and uncles over there as well.
Yeah, Joy, yours is amazing.
Yeah, I when I went to that information celebration, I found out about the adoption support group. So one day in February, I went to the adoption support group on a Saturday, and on a Sunday, I was expecting to meet my birth mother in church. My birth mother was an associate pastor, and she wanted to give her testimony. She wanted to give her testimony before her church about what life was like before I came into her life. So she's giving her testimony. She would not talk to me on the telephone prior to that. She didn't want to hear my voice. I later found out. I didn't know. She only wanted the message. And she gave her testimony, introduced the congregation to me, and introduced herself to me during Black History Month. African drums playing, shut the church down. It was crying and hooping and hollering. She introduced the congregation and the church to my adopted parents. Thanked them for just loving on me over all these years. And it was in that moment that I realized I always looked in Essence magazine and jet for my birth mother because I thought she was tall. Found out she was 5'6", just like my adopted mother, and they stood like bookends, and they kind of looked like twins.
They look
So
just like
that
you.
I had an opportunity to meet her. She was the one that had also given me my birth father's name. And a month later, I met my birth father at my adopted father's house. We love game night, so we did a family game night. And he's walking one way down the hall. I'm coming around the corner. We meet at the middle again, expecting him possibly to be short. I'm looking down and I have to look up, and there I realize where I get my height from. So I met him at my adopted father's house during the family game night.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, just imagine you in church, and it just looked like a Tyler Perry movie. Like he was
Absolutely. It's on camera too.
she like Tyler Perry movie, and then she started doing her thing, and she's like, "Everybody meet Joy," and then she was coming down.
Yeah, and during her testimony, she spoke of how she was wishing and hoping for joy at different times in her life, and she just kept saying joy, joy. They didn't have a clue what she was talking about, but they're thinking that joy in terms of happiness and finding peace and things of that nature. And then when she says, "And now I'm going to introduce you to my daughter," it was like you could hear crickets. But just prior to her testimony, she did sing. And it was in that moment that my adoptive father leaned in and said, "That's where you get your voice from." So it was just many aha moments. Like you said, made for television moments. That were a blessing.
That one definitely was. Carla, you want to get some of these comments? And then we'll get ready to
Sure.
wrap up.
Okay. Let's see. We go back to Lawrence Jones says, "If only Maddie Nobles could see you now."
That's Pumpkin. My cousin Pumpkin. Maddie Nobles is my grandmother. That Doris, my mother, raised me. My grandmother. Yes. Thank you, Pumpkin. I appreciate that.
Fran Barr says, in such a short period of time, you and my nieces, nephews, and my bonus daughter Kiva are a gift."
Oh, thanks, Aunt Fran.
Lawrence Jones again says, "I'm so proud of you, Regina." Oh,
thank you. I love my cousin. I love my Pumpkin. Thank you.
Glowmont says, "Thanks to this wonderful panel. It's been very enlightening and will help me in this journey as I meet my niece Samara and my bonus niece Kiva. This helps me understand that more work needs to be done in this journey by me too. Although I cried with joy, I understand that Samara is not the only one where healing is needed. Welcome to the family. Love you, Aunt Gloriette."
That's beautiful.
Oh, beautiful.
Aunt Gloriette is actually my birth dad's sister.
That is beautiful.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
Aunt Gloriette.
So got me started ready to cry. That's beautiful. Aunt Glow, we love you already, Aunt Glow.
DJ Brown, "Everyone has amazing courage. Joy, thank you for sharing this segment. Thank you. Let's talk."
Hey, BJ.
Oh,
All right now.
beautiful.
Absolutely. Thank you. Fran Barr says, "We are all in this together."
Yes.
Amen.
Thank you.
Amen.
BJ Brown adds, "As the Bible says, Regina, by beholding, we become changed. So it is not a surprise you have features of your dad who raised you." What a blessing.
What a blessing. Yes. Smitty was a blessing, I tell you, boy. I love you from Smitty. Yes.
Everybody did.
Everybody loves Smitty now.
Absolutely.
Smitty was
He
the
was,
man.
he was amazing.
Yeah, he was a man. That's why I know God has his hands in all of us. The parents that raised us did an amazing job with us. We are beautiful women. They did a great job. God knew what he was doing. I don't question his doings when he put us, through another family. He knew what was right for us, and he had a purpose for us. And the only way we were able to fulfill that purpose is to go through what we went through. That was the only way. What we went through was a purpose and reason, because he said, I need y'all to go out there and help others just like you. This is what I need you to do. And now when you know your purpose, everything just makes sense. It just automatically makes sense. This whole journey makes sense to me now. I understand why I went through all the heartaches and all the, relationship issues, friendship. I get it now. And it makes sense. I would not be who I am if I didn't go through what I went through.
Yeah.
So that was the reason. So I'm so happy about that. We're going to just talk on one more thing, and then we'll answer Cookie's questions. I know you were talking about the biracial, what we think about that. So we'll just do two more things, and then we'll do the spotlight.
And if I can jump in the second one.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, if anybody is listening and they are preparing for a reunion, there's a book a friend of mine by the name of Pam shared with me. It's called Adoption Reunions by Michelle McComb. And it addresses, Regina, exactly what you talked about a little earlier. It told me in advance that when I was going to go through this reunion, one thing that was going to be common that everybody was going to be doing was staring. And it wasn't something that I was anticipating going into the reunion without having read that. So was able to anticipate that it was going to happen, and it didn't make me feel as awkward because I found myself staring, and then I found people staring at me as well. But having read the book, it kind of went through some things to expect when you are going through the reunion. It let me know, Samaria, when it was telling me about feeling that wide roller coaster range of emotions. So there are a few pieces you can't fully prepare for a reunion and what you're going to experience, but there are some great things that are in that particular book.
Oh, good. I'm glad you put that out there, because it's a lot more of us who's going to probably go through this soon. And you know how to reach us. You have our information. Please, if you're contemplating, thinking about it, have questions about it, please contact me. If you want to get contacted through the other two ladies, I will make sure you get to them. We are here to help you. We are a family. We are this unique niche family of adoption, and we are definitely here to help you, because there's things like she just gave you that I didn't know about. That I just went in. So if we have something to help you out, please, let us know. We'll definitely help you with this journey. I'll do anything I can to help you. I mean, because I understand what you're feeling. So one of the things about meeting your adopted parents, like you see on TV, right? So many shows that you see them meet the family, everybody's hugging and everybody's laughing and they eating dinner together, and then the credits roll and everybody goes home, right? They never really talk about what happens after you meet your birth family. They never tell you what happens afterwards, because that's a whole nother roller coaster you got to deal with. Because remember, you're meeting people that you're told that you're supposed to automatically just know these people, because that's your dad, your sister, your brother. But you don't know these people at all. And you start from scratch to get to know in my case, 6 personalities, plus a father, plus aunts. And you feel like you're starting over, like you have to kind of learn so many people. And then you got to learn their kids. And sometimes they have kids. There's so many people that you have to learn. Like I have a book, like literally a book right here. And I just brought this to show you that I had to write down everyone's birth dates and families and their kids' names. Now I'm writing down my sister's kids' names. It feels weird. You're supposed to know your sister kids. I'm writing down their birthdays so I can remember to tell them happy birthday. I'm writing down, I'm like, okay, what's your son name again? Or what's your other son name again? It sounds so weird to say that, but that was the only way I was able to get to know my families by, and I put them in my phone. Okay, it's my nephew's birthday. Okay, it's my niece's birthday, because I want to jump in and I want to be that aunt that But it's a challenge. It is a challenge, because you got to learn personalities, and you're not going to mesh with everybody the same way. You love them, but some people you're not going to have that same relationship as you will have with others. But in the reunion, it looks like everybody's going to be kumbaya for the rest of their lives. Like, I found my brother, I found my sister. But now the work begins.
Mm-hmm.
Now you got to learn these people, and you got to understand that everybody's not going to, you're not going to get along with everybody on the same level as some other of your siblings. And especially for me, who's the only child. I never been experienced with sisters and brothers before. So I don't know how that works. I just feel like you're my brother, you're my sister, we rocking, we good. Like, that's it. But I still have to get to know their ways, and I got to get to know them. They got to get to know me. We were raised differently. We had different belief systems. So that's a challenge. So what do y'all feel about that?
So for me,
go ahead.
I definitely have, like additional siblings that I'm having to get to know, and just the 2 different families as a whole. One thing for me, it doesn't make it any easier, is I don't have to be conflicted with, my parents, that raised me, my adopted parents, because they are actually both deceased. So, me finding out that, the timing was not my choice, obviously, but I don't have to choose, between them. I can actually get to know these other families and the other siblings, other aunts and uncles and cousins. And it's just a lot of family members as well. Like you, Regina, I have a composition notebook that I've kept up with dates, names, birthdays, my emotions, how I was feeling. Like I literally kept up with all of that type of information, just so, to help me get through my process. And, it's something that I'm actually able to share with my counselor as well.
Okay, Joy.
Yeah, and I was in the beginning thinking, all these people are coming out to see and meet and greet, and everybody must be really close knit. And then a cousin actually on my father's side said, everybody's on their best behavior right now. She said, but things will click and fixing, and then everybody will get back to how they normally are at family events. So I realized that in the beginning it was going to be nice and rosy and everybody was going to be okay, but that some of those people that came were just coming to see what the heck was going on. Who was this person coming into our family? And I had to be okay with that and realize that some family I'm going to stick to, some family I'm not. In the beginning, like I said, I was trying to make sure I called this person on this day, this person on that day, that if I had a story, I had to get it to all four of my parents. I was going crazy. And I realized that's not healthy for me. And I'm still trying to figure this out, because now it's like, if I see you or talk to you, then those things will come up. If I don't, I'm not going to be pressed about a lot of that stuff. And I do have a half brother who I know that I'm not going to have a relationship with. And I've already grieved the loss of that relationship, because I've always wanted a sibling. And that's just not going to happen because of things that are going on in his life. And I just realized I just have to be okay with that and give myself grace and do what I can with the people who are willing to be in my life and in the lives of my children as well.
Yeah, dealing with the blended family, dealing with the new family, and the blend, the holidays, the visiting each other and stuff. I have been blessed though that I have been accepted in my family. I've been blessed with that. It's just that, like you said, I came in on COVID, so I didn't get a chance to really. Now I'm getting to go visit them and get to know them a little better. So now I'm starting to learn my family more and more. Like my dad, he calls me every single day. I text and call. He hits me on Instagram. He hits me on Facebook. He emails me. He texts me. He'll video chat with me. He does all this in one day, y'all. This man knows his social media. And it's so funny because you were raised with a dad who didn't know none of that stuff. And then I have a dad now that's the thing too, because you have, like, I had to sit back one time and I had to tell him I was sorry. I said, I'm sorry. Because I'm used to a dad being a certain way. Everyone is different. You know what I'm saying? He's not Smitty. He's Nathaniel. He's not Smitty. And I had to understand that, like, I'm not going to get the same dad. A dad is not just one dad. Every dad is different. They have different ways of handling situations and all that stuff. And we'll have these long talks, and he'll be like, oh, okay, I didn't really think of it that way. I didn't, like, we have like different conversations that I never had with my dad. Never got that deep with my dad before. And now with my dad now, I can get into deep conversation. We talk about relationships. We talk about, being with people and how this works and why you should. So I enjoy that I have that kind of relationship with him that I didn't have with my other dad. But then there's other things that, vice versa. So I'm getting used to that. I'm definitely getting used to that right now.
So it's getting to know those personalities and even the family dynamics on each side of the family, and trying to figure all those things out while you're coming in at the same time.
Yeah, it's a big puzzle. You're just trying to figure everything out. So Carla, we'll go ahead and get the last. Okay, forward, Cookie. I'm sorry. Cookie had a question about the biracial adoptions, especially like This Is Us. It's a perfect example. This Is Us is a perfect example of that. How do y'all feel about? Do y'all have any kind of feelings about that at all?
Feelings in particular, I work with a number of, and they're called transracial adoptions, when you have a family of one race adopt a child of another race. My thing is, and what I share with them often is, if you are willing to learn the culture of the child that you are bringing into your family, and you are willing to make yourself uncomfortable by going into that culture, it can work, and it could be a successful adoption where the child feels loved and welcome, but also has some connection to their culture. But if you're a particular situation, a white family was adopting a young Black girl in a predominantly white neighborhood, that might not be the best thing. You may need to think about relocating into an area and or finding that child activities where they're going to be around other people of color, so that they can have those experiences and get to know things. I would never want to see a child sitting in a foster home because we're saying that they shouldn't be able to adopt across racial race across races, whatever's best for that particular child. But you do have to take some responsibility in terms of bringing a child of another race into your home. And what are you going to commit to doing to ensure that they have some connection to their identity? A lot of kids that you hear talk about their being a transracial adoptee, they find struggles once they get around to middle school. They have struggles once they get around to high school and go off to college. And the other piece that they have that we did not have, because we were raised by people of the same race, it wasn't an immediate where anybody knew. Versus if you're in a family of another race, you can't. That's not a secret. And then how are you going to deal with it? You can't skate away from it and not deal with it. How are you going to deal with it? And how are you going to make that child feel comfortable in that space when other people who have their little microaggressions and want to say things that are inappropriate in the presence of that child? How are you going to balance all that stuff? You have to be ready for that.
I think that you answered that perfectly. Like you said, you don't want to have no child not to have a family. If it's another race that want to adopt this child, then that's a great thing that somebody loves the child enough to look past that color to adopt them. But like you said, it comes with responsibility.
Right.
You can't just adopt them and say, okay, just blend on in with us, and then we love you enough so you don't have to worry about anything. We're going to protect you. This world, like you said, if you use that example of a Caucasian family with a Black child, especially a Black male child, we've been seeing recently a lot of Caucasian families who's been standing up for the cause, because they didn't realize how bad it was out there until their child got pulled over by the police. They didn't realize how bad it was till their child got harassed, and then now they getting it because they see they didn't have to be exposed to it before. They didn't have it wasn't in their life, but now they have a child. They're like, this, I love this person I love. You're not going to do this to my child like any of us would do. We will do that for our children. And now it's like a double layer. They got to deal with this normal stuff, and now they got to deal with racial stuff on top of the normal stuff. Right. So it's a big responsibility. And if they got it, kudos to them. I love them for it. I'm glad that they're going to overcome and look over everything because they got the love for this child. I give them kudos, and they need to get all the support they need, because a lot of people will not take that on. Right. Because it's a lot for them, because they got to deal with their friends and family too.
Right. And you have to consider that when you're making that decision too. How is your family going to treat this child that's coming into your house? And the last thing we want to hear people say is, we don't see color. The world sees color. So how are you going to prepare that child to be in the world in which we live? So I do agree with that.
Yeah. So they have to understand what they get into. And that's the counseling part they need to get before. They got to get double counseling as well. The regular counseling for adoption, and they need to get racial counseling to understand what they're getting themselves into. Because you can't, this is not a toy. You can't bring her back. When you adopt it, that's a wrap. So you need to know what you're getting into, because she's going to ask you questions. She's going to feel like, okay, who's going to do my hair? No, my hair's looking crazy every day. Why my hair looking like this? You going to get somebody to come braid it, or what's going to happen? Like those simple things that they think is no big deal is a big deal to us. Hair is a big deal to us. So it comes with a lot. It definitely does. All right, Carla, go ahead and get these questions. I got to do the business spot, like we've been on too long.
Okay. All right. Roy Morton says, Samara, can't wait to see you and give you a big hug from me and for my brother, Terry.
Oh, that's my uncle. And Terry was my birth dad.
Awesome. Yes. Victoria Burrows says, thank you all for sharing your stories. Samara, I'm so proud of you. I'm here for you and love you.
Thanks, Vicky.
Fran Barr says, tell us how we can make things easier as you blend with your additional family.
Thanks, Fran.
Sneed Dennis says, I had a foster son who was half Black and half Korean. We had no trouble because people knew who I was and stood for.
That's right.
That's important.
That's important.
And that's important for the adoptee to see you react and deal with people as you're going along this journey too, because then they feel safe and they feel protected.
They sure do. They sure do. And that's very important. So, all right, I'll go ahead and do our business spotlight this evening. And I'm so happy to share this with everyone. Let's see. All right, so it's a podcast. This is my longtime friend. We've been friends since high school, Donna Poisson, and she has a beautiful podcast called Cousin Chat. And she talks about so many topics. She's actually an educator. She's a teacher, a school teacher, and she is a Delta as well, ladies, for
All
Joy
right.
and Andrea.
All right, Sora.
So, but she's beautiful, and she actually asked me several times. We have really a good team together, and I have done her podcast probably 4 or 5 times already. And this is the latest one that we had talked about communications, and it was really, really good. She does a great job interviewing, and she makes you feel so comfortable. So check her out. She's on all the platforms for podcasts, Anchor, Apple, Google, Breaker, all the pods. So it's called Cuz in Chat Podcast. If you look it under there, you'll be able to find her. Please tune in. She always releases on Fridays. So Friday she always have new episodes. And just check her out. They're about 20 minutes long. Very nice, very good chat. So
Awesome.
Nice.
yes, that is nice. Before we finish off, we got to do our mug giveaway. And I'm going to make it easy because last week I did say something that I hope some of y'all caught on to. And it was the answer for this week's mug giveaway. And as you see, we all have our little mugs today. So the mug giveaway question is, and just guess, because you may get it. So just guess, how many episodes have we done so far for Let's Talk? How many episodes have we done so far for Let's Talk? I advise you to try any number. The closest one before we end will get the mug. So how many episodes have we done of Let's Talk? All right. I'll give you a couple of seconds to get that in. And while you do that, we'll go around the horns to everyone. I'll start with the Let's Talk. Well, actually, I'll start with our panelists first, and then we'll go to the Let's Talk crew. So, Samara, you want to chime in on what you have anything to say before you leave today?
So I just want to thank, this panel and the guests, the speakers, the host of this show. Thank you to all my family and friends that actually tuned in. I am looking forward to continuing my journey, and it's good for me to know that, of course, I'm loved, I am wanted, and that I have a family of support to help get me through this time in my life.
All right. Joy with an I.
Thank you for having us. Thank you for, and as you know, taking a risk on a topic that people don't often talk about. Thank you for creating a platform that allows us to share our journeys and our stories openly and honestly, because I do believe that it would help someone. Two things I would just like to say, findingjoy.us is where you can find more information about me and about my journey, and access to my memoir and my 2 children's books that are available on Amazon. When you mentioned earlier about where do other folks go for support, we have an organization, miriamsheart.org, and that's for adopted parents and foster parents and anyone who's a prospective adoptive or foster parent. We have quarterly meetings that we run each year. And I think that is all.
All right. Yeah, I'm going to tell you to talk about your books. So definitely, because they do help other people. Because your book was amazing. It was really, really good. And thank you for that copy. And I would say, too, I have a book, if you don't know, it's called Adoption, the Unknown Blessing. And I would really appreciate you supporting me on my endeavor, and my story and journey is on Amazon. So Adoption, the Unknown Blessings on Amazon. And it takes a lot for us to write this, because it's like therapeutic. It's like therapy for us. But we are exposing ourselves that, the world told us we shouldn't be doing, and we doing it. So it made me grow. It grew me to a better person. So I'm glad I did do it. Okay. So all these joys, I've been hearing the word joy, the whole joy. So joy with a Y. You have anything to say?
Again, I'm just honored to be able to hear your story and for you all to tell your truth. And I'm telling you, you ladies are just blessed, and continue on being proud of who you are. And when you were talking, I'm so glad that they decided to give you up for adoption versus the other word, abortion. So I'm grateful for that, because you would not be here today. Thank you, ladies.
Absolutely.
Good point. Yes. Amen. Andre, you want to say?
Sure. Just thank you all so much for sharing your story again. This has been very enlightening for me, and I applaud you all for sharing. And everyone who watches our show knows that I'm going to add a scripture somewhere in the
Mhm.
broadcast. And there is a scripture in Psalms, the New International Version. I think it's Psalm 6. I think Psalm 68. Psalm 68, and there's a scripture, a verse in 68 somewhere, and in 5 or 6, where it says that God sets the lonely in families. So that lets me know that God smiles on adoption.
Mhm.
So I just want to say to you all, I wish you well, and continue prayers as you go on your journey.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. So we had a couple of people that actually tried for it, call us. So just let us know. The answer is this is actually episode 18 right now. We are
Okay.
doing 18. So it looks like we have somebody who's very close.
Mm-hmm. He got 17.
Wow.
Yes.
Hmm. So you want to put it
Got
on the screen?
17. Okay.
There you go.
Wow.
Dennis B. Because he actually been on many of our
I
episodes. So
was
I
going to
appreciate
say
your
he's
support.
probably been on 17 of the 18.
Yeah, exactly.
I really appreciate you, Dennis. Dennis has been a great
Nice.
supporter of our show, and he's a Virginia State alumni, VSU. I love it. I love it. I love it. So
Mm.
thank you so much for being that person that supports us. So I will definitely get in contact with you and mail you your mug, your Let's Talk mug. So you got to take a picture of it so I can post it. Okay.
Awesome.
So um, Let's Talk is on Anchor Podcast as well, just like Donna's cousin chat is on Anchor Podcast, and you get it on all your platforms. So if you can't watch us, you can listen to us while you're in traffic, or you running errands, or you running in the park. Plug it in, and you can listen to these shows, so you won't miss out on this great information that we do give out, and we get our little experts and our people that know about these topics. So thank you so much for that. One of the last things is our next show topic. This is going to be, it's called singleness. Singleness. And I have two ladies that, oh my gosh, they are so amazing on how they went through their journey being single, and now they happily married, and what they did in this process. It's a great story, and it kind of gives you hope and faith, the ones that us that are single out here. And it kind of tells us that, God didn't forget us. We'll be all right. So this is gonna be a great episode. So I will definitely tell you to tune in if you're single, man or woman. This is gonna be a great show. Even if you're married, it's a great show just to hear about what's going on with a single folk. So come on and join us. And that's on October 31st at 7 p.m. It's called Singleness. And let's see, I think that's all I have. And as I said, this show's been a longer show today, but it's been a great show. And I didn't want to cut it off because it was a lot of good information. And then the ladies, thank you for sharing your truths and your stories, because I know how it is. So thank you so much for doing that. And if everybody have clear minds, like they say, you got clear minds and hearts. And, next time, please invite a friend. Let's talk again. So God bless and good night. We love you. Thank you so much. Have a good evening.